Andrew, thank you so much for your time.
Great to see you again.
Good to see you again. Now, I hear that you have brought a group of people to Chiang Mai, Thailand recently. So would you mind telling us a little bit more about that trip?
Yeah, so we were the first conference to go up there after 2 years of the lockdown. So it was great, and I think made it extra welcoming from that perspective. But we had 45 people go, so we had staff, all the staff who could, and their partners along, yeah, we had a good few days of good conferencing and some good fun as well. So it's a great relaxing place from that perspective.
Now tell us, why did you choose Chiang Mai?
Well, obviously coming out of lockdown and everything else, I actually promised the staff in about October last year. I said, next year we hit our number, we're all gonna go overseas. It might just be Sentosa, but it's going to be overseas somewhere. So we got to March and went, explore the possibility. Are we stuck with that, or can we actually get there? And when it all came back and we looked at how the restrictions were going, how it was to get into Thailand, and obviously, Thailand is, it's cost competitive as a choice for these things. So that's always a factor in making decisions around those things. And all the countries could get there without undue restrictions in terms of what would have to be done in terms of compliance and quarantine and all the rest of it. So a lot of which rules are changing as we speak. I think it's today.
Yeah.
So they'll be opening back up a lot more from that perspective. Yeah. But that was a big factor. Chiang Mai is lovely. It was my first time. So I really enjoyed it from that perspective, and it feels so different from where they all come from. So it had a real nice feel for that, and that was the reason behind the choice.
Brilliant. We are coming out of COVID, we are so used to connecting digitally, and now you've got 45 people face to face in person. So can you tell us a little bit about the dynamics of in person and how that sort of help you with achieving your objectives for that team bonding session?
Yeah, so doing conferences again live, it's just a great reminder again. We all know it, we all do live conferences, but to get back to it in 2 years, you again remember the camaraderie that happens. People get to meet each other physically, even people from our Singapore office who had never met each other, because we've grown so much over COVID and they've worked from home, they haven't had that opportunity, or when we've had small groups in the office. So it was great to have them all meet each other and then discover each other. And when you take them away somewhere and you take them out of the office to do it, then they start to discover a lot more about each other. There was some very interesting games of Never Have I Ever played amongst them in some late night drinking sessions, of which they had a few. And they learned things about each other they had absolutely no idea, and it really built the camaraderie really, really nicely. So that was important. Interestingly, we were running it hybrid because not everybody could go. Either people failed their PCR tests, but we had people who didn't want the idea of travelling just yet, had other reasons, family reasons they couldn't go. So we had about 20 or so people who were joining virtually as well. And so we got that comparison between those who were involved online and those who were there live in that respect. And we didn't even try to do all the sessions with the remote audience because there's things you just can't do. That remote audience, they joined in, and we completely structured it so that we made sure that everybody participated and everybody was involved in it, regardless if they were there or they weren't there physically. But then other sessions, having a really proper workshop, really interactive around ideas, that can be really hard when you're not physically in the same room.
Yeah.
So getting that dynamic back and working that through was really fun.
Yeah. Other than the drinking session that you all have, which is delightful. I mean, that is a very good team bonding exercise, right? So what are some of the sort of team building activities in Chiang Mai that your team particularly loved?
Yeah, so we did. We had conference and we had team building, and within the conference we kept it quite. We constructed them into teams so that they would learn and associate with people in different ways and find out more about each other. And then we did some organised activities as well. We did a team building piece where they got to go out and discover Chiang Mai. So they got to wander the streets on a treasure hunt as such to find out information around there and compete in doing that. But we wanted to add a bit of a CSR element as well. We really, we believe in giving back. It's quite important. And obviously Chiang Mai has been quite badly hit by the last 2 years as well. But we found a charity there which allowed us to build wheelchairs, to buy and build wheelchairs for them. So part of the competition became building a wheelchair and having that all prepared for somebody. So that was great, and it really worked. So they discovered the sea, they did something useful, created a great mood, got everybody very focused on the fun and the camaraderie, as you said.
And how would you put a value of, now that you've come back from the trip, you can see, as you mentioned earlier, those who were there gelled really well. Yeah. They have built a closer relationship.
Yeah.
As a director of the business, how do you value that?
Gosh, that's a hard one to say. How do you value it? I mean, it's so important that they've been talking to each other on phones for 2 years, and the humanity starts to disappear on phones and video calls, and you notice that just the way that people respond to each other doesn't, it's not as human as it used to be. So having them see each other and understand it, and this is the exercises we did in our conference, were very much about learning who the people were, learning how they worked as a team and how they could work with other teams better. And that's almost impossible to do unless you've got everybody there to do that kind of thing. So we had some great parts in there, and we've seen some response in that. And interestingly also, one of the teams had only about half the members of that team could make it, so they were the most affected by the travel restrictions, etc., and the negative PCRs, positive PCRs. So that team, after I'd watched their presentation, didn't work as well as everybody else's, and they said, okay, we're having a separate team bonding for your team because you guys need to spend a bit of time working through. We're seeing the problems of this being delivered all the way up to the point of the conference. So we're now sending them all off to work through things, I guess would be the best word. But we're a very open culture, so we discuss things pretty openly in our place.
And that's wonderful to hear, because in the past, prior to COVID, we've always been sort of like the event or the trip, that's it.
Yeah.
But now that you're extending that into different formats so that people can continue to bond, that is really awesome to hear.
Yeah, look, an event is just a moment in time. It's usually a critical moment in time of any campaign, or whether that be internal bonding or any other type of promotional piece that you want to do. There's got to be something that leads up to it to make it work. There's got to be that moment, and it's everything that comes out of that moment that you need to keep on doing. So we've got all the management team have now taken on. We had a separate management extension for the management team. They've all taken on things for the overall business that they're gonna own and they're gonna take forward outside of their general responsibilities. And they're reconnect every 2 weeks to just come through and build those things through the business. So there's a lot of things you discover, and a lot of ways that you can find ways for people to work together. We work very hard to be a non-competitive internally. There's so much to do out there. We try to bond internally, and everyone who comes to our office always says it's like the most friendly family environment I've ever been in for an office, and we like it like that.
Yeah, fantastic. So, well, thanks again, and congratulations on a successful trip.
Thank you.
We look forward to seeing you more often, Andrew.
Pleasure.